Annyeonghaseyo, good day everyone. My name is Raquel M. Borigas from BSAC Accountancy 1B, and for today's video I'm going to discuss about intercultural communication with the topic of communication modes, styles, practices of South Korea. But before we go to our main topic, I would like to discuss what is intercultural communication and a brief overview of South Korea. So when we say intercultural communication, it is the verbal and nonverbal interaction between people from different cultural backgrounds. In other words, it's the process of communicating with people from another culture. Intercultural communication is about much more than just a language, since so much of communication is nonverbal. So for the brief overview of South Korea is a country in Eastern Asia occupying the southern half of the Korean peninsula. It borders the Sea of Japan, the Yellow Sea, and the North Korea. South Korea's terrain is mostly mountainous. The government system is a republic. The chief of state is the president, and the head of the government is the prime minister. South Korea has a mixed economic system which includes a variety of private freedom combined with centralized economic planning and government regulation. South Korea is a member of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC and the Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement or APTA. South Korea is an extraordinary country filled with beautiful beaches, thriving cities, ancient temples, remarkable natural scenery, and most importantly, friendly people. South Korea has come a long way since the Korean War has ended in 1953. Almost all of South Korea was completely leveled during the war, which is hard to imagine if you have seen Korea recently. Korea's dense urban centers, developed parks and recreation facilities, high-tech infrastructure, and ultra-modern public transportation systems are just some of the things that have made Korea a recognized hotspot for international business and travel. Seoul Olympic Park, located in the capital city of Seoul, preserves the spirit of the 1988 Summer Olympics, and it is open all day, providing multi-purpose areas for sports, leisure, and a variety of cultural activities. To this day, Korea remains one of the world's most ethnically homogeneous countries. It is believed that the people of South Korea are direct descendants of several migratory Mongol tribes who ventured into the Korean peninsula about 500,000 years ago. Today, South Korea is a home to approximately 49 million people, making it one of the most densely populated countries in the world. South Korea currently maintains diplomatic relationships with over 170 different nations. So let's move to our main topic. Communication modes, styles, and practices of South Korea. First, we have the greetings. Use a person's formal title when addressing them for the first time and continue to do so until they signal otherwise. For example, Mr., Miss, and Doctor. The most common way to greet in South Korea is with a bow. The casual bow is a tip of the head with eyes closed, sometimes accompanied by a slight bend from the waist. This type of greeting is used when informally greeting someone or walking past someone of a higher status. Business interactions require a deeper bow, where the torso bends from the waist by about 30 degrees. So as you can see in the picture, we have three different Korean bows. We have first the slight bow with a 50-degree bend, second the salute bow with a 30-degree bend, and third the respectful bow with a 45-degree bend. The deepest, most polite bow expresses sincerest gratitude or apology. One bends from their torso to around 45 degrees or at such an angle from which the head would have to stretch up to look into the face of the other person. The head is kept lowered in this greeting. Handshakes are also used to greet in South Korea. To show great respect during this greeting, one may support the wrist of their right hand with their left as they shake. Don't be surprised. In Korea, it could be rude for the junior to use one hand when handshaking. Use two hands. Women may also greet one another by reaching out both hands to touch and clasp the other woman's hands. A person in a position of service may put their hands together in front of their chest when greeting you or accepting something as an expression of gratitude. Many Koreans who live in Australia hug or kiss as a part of greetings. Next, we have the etiquette and for the basic etiquette. In Korea, people really thank one another for gestures of courtesy. Example, holding open doors. Nor do they generally apologize if they bump into one another on the street. Australians may interpret this as being rude or disrespectful behavior, but keep in mind that Koreans consider such minor incidents or manners to be actions that one should anticipate and expect in life. Therefore, they generally do not require a profuse apology, a thank you, or even acknowledgement. Respect is exhibited in different ways. Respect should always be shown to those that are older than you. This involves deferring to their opinion, waiting for their input, and lowering your gaze if they are elder. Objects, gifts, and food should be offered and received with two hands. Remove your hat when indoors. It is best practice to remove your shoes before entering a Korean home. Koreans are reasonably punctual and usually prompt. They tend to try and make the most of the time they have. In certain settings, this can come across as impatient. Next, we have eating. It is considered inappropriate for adults to eat while walking, so street food is often eaten on the spot where it is bought. Food should not be eaten with one fingers. Spoons are used to eat soup, but chopsticks are used for everything else. Do not blow your nose at the dinner table. The eldest person should be served first. Everyone seated should then wait for them to begin eating before doing so. And for the drinking, South Korea has a large drinking culture. Drinking can give status, proving one's stamina, and machismos, particularly for men. If you do not want to participate in drinking, try to give a sincere reason such as medical or religious grounds. Do not make an excuse that could be interpreted as the morals of those drinking. Avoid emptying your glass if you had enough to drink. Fill others' glasses before your own. In a formal setting, do not fill your own drink and instead wait for someone else to return the gesture and fill yours. Also, we have the do's and don'ts. And for the do's, laugh with Koreans whenever possible as they enjoy sharing humor. Make an effort to compliment what you like about Korea. This may help in giving you face. Be aware of how you fit in the social hierarchy that Koreans observe. Discern who is superior to you based on age, position, and family name, and show respect to each person as necessary. If you do not adhere to these expectations and fail to give a Korean the respect they are due, you may lose face in their eyes. You may even find that they wish to avoid you after. Expect a Korean to be modest and subtly deny any compliments you give them. Be sensitive to the hardship South Koreans have endured and sympathize about the situation in North Korea. For the don'ts, avoid drawing parallels between the Korean culture or language to Japan. Korea should be acknowledged for its distinctiveness and difference from other East Asian cultures. Avoid exhibiting anger or distress in heated displays or outbursts of emotion. Doing so may cause you to lose face. Do not underestimate their knowledge and intelligence as the Korean population is very culturally educated and politically aware. Next, for the verbal communication, we have the indirect communication. The South Korean communication pattern is generally indirect and quite verbose. They tend to rely less on words and are attentive to a speaker's posture, expressions, and tone of the voice to draw meaning. Speech can be ambiguous as they often understate their point. The purpose of this is to maintain harmony throughout the conversation and prevent a loss of face on either end of the exchange. The best way of navigating this rhetoric to find the underlying meaning is to check for clarification several times through open-ended questions. For the refusals, a South Korean preoccupation with saving face and politeness means they will seldom give a flat no or negative response, even when they don't agree with you. Therefore, focus on hints of hesitation, listening to what they say but also paying careful attention to what they subtly imply. Speech style. While they may be indirect in their communication style, South Koreans generally speak quite firmly and use less gestures and facial expressions. This can make them come across as stern. Expect them to give serious replies and retorts. They also tend to ask questions in order to discern their status in comparison to the person they are talking to. This can catch people off guard. For example, how much do you earn? Or how old are you? Next, silence. Silence is an expression and purposely tool used in Asian communication. Pausing before giving a response indicates that someone has applied appropriate thought and consideration to the question. It reflects politeness and respect. Next, laughter. Laughter is sometimes used in awkward situations. A Korean may laugh when they feel uncomfortable and not necessarily because what was said was genuinely funny. For the nonverbal communication, we have the physical contact. Koreans are generally not very physically affectionate with one another. However, male friends may touch one another more than Western men and girls may walk hand in hand. Next, personal space. Personal space is not guarded very closely in Korea. People generally expect to come into contact with strangers on busy streets and tend not to worry or apologize when personal space is invaded. Next, for the pointing, people do not point with their index finger but rather with their entire hand. For the beckoning, one beckons by fluttering all fingers to one's hand with the palm facing towards the ground. For the eye contact, during a discussion or friendly conversation, make full eye contact with the person you are talking to. Avoid direct contact if you are scolded, rebuked by someone older or of a higher status than you. Some Koreans may also avoid eye contact with their superiors on a regular basis. And for the hands, use two hands or your right hand alone to offer or receive something. For the gestures, it is considered rude to make a face with your hand while placing the thumb between the middle and index finger. For the expressions, Koreans tend to come across as quite straight-faced in conversation. However, the facial expressions can immediately expose when they are angry or in disagreement. Smiling, as well as an expression of glee and humor, smiling can indicate that one is feeling ashamed or embarrassed in Korean culture. For example, a Korean may smile when they make a mistake. Sneezing. Sneezing is considered rude in Korea. It is best practice to excuse yourself from the room if you have to. So for other considerations, being an almost entirely ethnically homogeneous nation that has been invaded multiple times, the South Korean culture reserves some trepidation for foreigners. The country is wary and guarded against being subjugated again, and therefore you may find it slightly harder to gain the trust of a Korean. Koreans can find it awkward or intimidating to speak one-on-one with people of the opposite gender. So much socialization between genders in Korea occurs in groups. Koreans only scribe in red ink to write the name of someone who has passed away. Korean counting is done differently. A number indicates a unit of time, and in higher numbers, figures are counted in groups of 4. Therefore, when referring to a number with a Korean who is not proficient in English, it is wise to write the number down in full to avoid misunderstanding. Military service is compulsory for South Korean men. So this is the end of my video presentation. I hope that you learned more about communication modes, styles, and practices of South Korea. Thank you and God bless. 감사합니다. 안녕.